Okay, good morning. Good morning. Nice to see a full room, and thank you so much for choosing to be here. We know there's lots of sessions available, so thank you for picking this one. Also, hello to people watching back as well, because this is being live streamed and also available to watch back. So my name is Matt Cooke. I'm from Google, and we're here to talk fighting misinformation online. If we can go to the presentation, please. This is obviously a key moment. This year, up to 400 million citizens will vote in this year's European parliamentary elections. At a time when access to quality information is key, Google and YouTube, together with partners such as the European University Institute, the Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation, are proud to champion something called the European Media and Information Fund, which we're going to talk about today. We often wish to convene experts to bring people from across government, academia, civil society and industry, and that's why we've picked today to talk about this issue. Our goal is to continue working together on key topics, including media literacy, civic engagement, mis- and disinformation in the context, of course, of artificial intelligence going forward too. So for this session, today we want to achieve three things. Number one, raise awareness of the great work being done by these people here and others, the misinformation experts who are doing the real hard work. The second is to talk about best practices from the projects and some advice for those of you who are watching this and thinking about starting new projects or programs, and also thinking about applying and finding funds. And finally, specifically want to hear more about the European Media and Information Fund. Paolo will talk us through the governance, the trends, what kind of projects are coming from the countries across Europe when we think about these topics. I'm very fortunate to be joined by a talented panel. To begin with, we will be talking about specific projects, and we have to my left Aleksandra Monkos, Project Manager, Fact-Checking Academy at Demagog Association. Then we'll have Martina Hilbertova, who's an analyst at Transparency International Slovakia. And then to finish us off, we'll have Paolo Cesarini. Paolo is here from the European Digital Media Observatory and a representative, of course, of the European Media and Information Fund. They'll go through the projects, the trends, and also some advice on how you can apply for funding, and we want you to leave with a better understanding of some of the great work that is happening. We'll try and fit some questions in as well, so you have those. We'll get to those at the end. But thank you very much to the panel for being here. Let's get going then and just start by handing to you, Aleksandra, who you're going to give us a sense of the projects that you've been working on.
So hello, everyone. I'm excited to be with you today. My name is Aleksandra Monkos, and I work in Demagog Association, which is the oldest and biggest fact-checking organization in Poland, celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. So we tackle misinformation every day, and as you can imagine, it's a tough battle that requires all hands on deck. So I'm the one responsible for education and our fact-checking academy, which is one of three pillars of Demagog's activities, along with verifying politicians' statements and debunking fake news online. For now, the organization is focused on covering election misinformation, since this is an important moment for Poland and not only for Poland. Last year, we witnessed elections, parliamentary ones in Poland. This year, we are having local government elections and European Parliament elections. And the next year will be all about presidential elections in Poland. But at the same time, we constantly tackle fake news on the war in Ukraine, health, climate change, and so on. So Demagog's mission is to improve the state of public debate in Poland, and we do whatever we can to pursue this goal. Recently, we started working with journalists, and this is why I'm so happy to be here. We do provide professional trainings for journalists in fact-checking. We also organize events, and we search for new ways of making citizens more interested in facts. We've just organized Verificathon, which was an event dedicated to journalists who, during the weekend, a few weeks ago, verified statements of local politicians in Poland competing with each other. And it was a very inspiring event for us, since we learned that the successful cooperation between the world of fact-checking and the world of journalism is not only possible, but also very welcome from both sides. But today, I will be bold enough to go beyond the core of fact-checking and try to invite you to give up, at least for a moment, for a classic technical tools of information verification, and instead to tackle misinformation by focusing on emotions and our self-awareness to build true resilience. But no more spoilers for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've also got some slides. If you want to talk through any of your slides, Aleksandra, let me know. We can go back to them. Yeah, thank you. Let me know if you want to go through any of your slides. We can go back to some of those examples. Martina, let's hear from you now about your project and the work that you've been doing in Slovakia.
Oh. Do you hear me? I'm Martina Hilbertova from Slovakia, from Transparency International Slovakia. I'm an analyst. I don't think I need to introduce our NGO too much, because Transparency International is one of the most influential think tanks in the world, and Transparency Slovakia is a part of this network. Our mission is less corruption and more transparency in the institutions, and we also observe the powerful, propose solutions, and we engage the public, the people to the public control. So I have to. Oh.
Why don't you go ahead and show us your proposals and your projects, and we can learn from those.
Mm-hmm. Slovakia is a country where an investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak, was shot, and according to Slovak police, it was his investigative work which was likely the motive, and it changed everything. Also, the alternative media in this period in 2018 started to interest in topics of rule of law and misinformation.
Okay, well, let's come back to your topic. Let's go to you, Paolo, just to give us a quick introduction about your role, and then we'll come back to Aleksandra to start going through the projects in detail. So give us a bit of a sense of your role at EMIF and EDMO.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Paolo Cesarini. I'm the program director of two initiatives that are both directed towards countering online disinformation. One is the European Digital Media Observatory. That is, I will say some words afterwards more in detail about it. And the other one, it is the European Media and Information Funds. That is more an operational arm that provide funding for projects that span from research, fact-checking, media literacy, and as well as journalistic investigations. I would like to underline that these two projects run in a very independent manner, but they are very complementary. And complementarity and enabling organizations that can provide a response to such a complex phenomenon, which is disinformation, is fundamental nowadays. I will conclude just by reminding a couple of data. Disinformation is a kind of commonplace, many people talk about it, but let's just frame the problem as it is. In Davos, last January, for the first time, disinformation has come up as the first global threat for the next 2 years. And that it is, comes before other risks like extreme weather events, floods, earthquakes, but also before armed conflicts. And we know that armed conflicts is a tangible risk. So you can imagine how disinformation is pervasive regarding our daily life, I would say. And the second one is a recent report from the UNESCO, recent is just a few months ago, that has carried out a survey at a global scale, and at a global scale, on average, 87% of people consider that disinformation is a problem and is going to influence the upcoming election process in their respective countries, 87%. So I will stop there.
Okay, so a good introduction, thanks for that. Let's now dig in. You said, Aleksandra, that you were not prepared to give us spoilers. Let's get to those spoilers now. And let's look at the project. I'm going to hand you the mighty clicker, and we're going to go through to see more about your project. Over to you.
So I'm glad to show you a fascinating project named Fake No More, which approaches countering misinformation from a very innovative and non-obvious way, from the perspective of emotions and self-awareness, especially self-awareness of young people. So together with School of Class Foundation from Poland, we are reaching young people, especially young people with low social and economic status. So unprivileged children with often very tragic stories. So they can experience how emotions and personal experience influence the reception of information reaching us. We aim to help them to become more distant, more empowered, and this way more resilient to disinformation that is almost everywhere online. And while testing our materials and this approach, it appeared that it's very universal, that it can be applied not only in the group with young people, but even in groups with adults. We also use some of the activities that we prepared in our organization. We run the project internationally, so the materials are not only being translated to English, but also are being localized in Czechia, Romania, and Spain. Materials are available in English, ready to be used not only by educators working with youth. I believe that you can easily use them to enrich, for example, your professionalist journalistic training in media literacy, or that you can use the activities that we prepared as inspiration for articles, stories, videos, reaching your new young audiences. Or you can just extend your personal horizons by reading the introductory materials. The core of the project is brand new curriculum dedicated to informal and formal educators, divided into 5 chapters and containing 16 activities and a new board game. The curriculum was prepared by expert duos. So experts specializing in misinformation and disinformation, co-creating materials together with expert educators working with youth on a daily basis, for example, in therapeutic centers. So the pink chapter, as you can see on the slide, named How Do I Feel, marked as a heart, so symbolizing by heart, focuses on emotions. Then we have a yellow chapter, How Do I Think, symbolized by a circle, meaning ahead, that reflects on fast and slow thinking. The third chapter, the blue one, is How Do I See the World? So it's marked by an eye and it reflects on our cognitive biases. The fourth chapter, the gray one, How do I React, is marked by a triangle symbolizing breath. And it focuses on well-being online, allowing you or the young people to keep distance on the internet and to avoid disinformation, misinformation. And the last one, the green chapter, special for us, is What You Do, marked as a diamond, focuses on activities, our actions. What do we actually do on the internet? Where do we go? And the green chapter, besides activities, contains the game, that I mentioned. It's called Octogram, and it's a cooperative game that involves outsmarting the vicious algorithm by connecting bubble nodes, so people being trapped in information bubble, by drawing connections between them using social media reactions. So making stories that unite those bubble nodes, developing their friendships, and meanwhile learning about such difficult phenomena like deepfakes, misinformation, information stress that give you bonuses during the game when you do something good, like maintaining your digital wellness, or they hinder your actions in building those friendships, for example, when you encounter information stress. The activities incorporate a COPES cycle, which is a 4-step learning process. And it basically means that on the first step, we focus on I experience. So kids jump into a random activity, innocent activity. Then they reflect, I reflect. So young people discuss their observations and feelings coming from the first step. On the third step, they gain knowledge. So this is a boost of knowledge, very contextualized and provided by the educators. The knowledge is also included in, the knowledge parts are included in the curriculum. And the fourth, and for us, most important step would be, I see a connection and build resilience. And that means that we are building relationship between young people's everyday experiences, their interests, their behaviors, what they do, what they experience with misinformation. And activities are quite creative. So you can see on the slide educators testing the activities early in the project. So they are creating an Instagram filter for imaginary character. In that case, it was a young beauty influencer. So the activity called Filters, one of those 16, leads the young people from, as mentioned, very innocent activity, a game, a play, to create, draw a filter through the reflection, through learning something new, to a very fundamental conclusion on, for example, realizing that by constantly using filters to improve our self-image online, we might ourselves mislead others online, and that might have consequences for us, for the young people. Emotions are fundamental for the project, and this is something that we believe is unique. Activities refer to emotions. Each chapter uses the wheel of emotions. So the core question is, what do I feel when I, for example, encounter content online? Does it annoy me? Or perhaps it causes rage, and then I'm more prone to share hateful, inaccurate content. Or perhaps information makes me hyper excited and lets down my vigilance, so I end up participating in a spam competition, losing not only personal data but also money. Emotions are more important than we think, because misinformation and disinformation feed on them. And this is why we'll design the activities to teach children to constantly check on their emotions, and in that way regain control over what they do online to avoid disinformation, and instead to embrace what is positive and meaningful. We divided our workflow into 5 stages, but to save you some of the technical details, I will summarize the workflow by explaining what went well, what was the challenge, and what are our main lessons learned. So the crucial and most challenging at the same time moment was the beginning of the project, when we needed a solid needs analysis. So not to rely only on desk research, our past previous experiences and our perception of what is needed. We needed to consult our partners, educators that we stay in touch with, and also external advisory experts to establish what is really relevant. Then, before the main work, realities. Then the key moment was our first TOT, so training of trainers for the educators, where we first time tested the prepared materials and then asked the educators to test again the curriculum with the young people that they work with. And during the second TOT, 3 months later, after the holidays, when educators collected the needed knowledge, we asked for feedback. So we deepened the knowledge of the educators on misinformation and disinformation because they asked to be trained, but at the same time we collected feedback and improved the materials. Some small things like making big things and also small things like making materials both printable and non-printable version, because we found out that some of the people working in such facilities are overworked, underfunded, and they even don't have printers in their workspaces. And here's also, so localization dissemination is going right for now, and this is because the product was basically created together with the educators, constantly asking them for feedback, which was also a challenge. So the English, here are some QR codes that I'm going to leave you with, so you can download the curriculum together with all additional printable and non-printable worksheets, materials, also the board game, available in English. There will be also a Spanish, Romanian, Czech version. We are also waiting to publish 3 videos, very entertaining. One, an introduction to the board game, because nobody likes reading instructions, so there will be a video. And to sum up, why is it important? As we all have to confront misinformation, so let's take care of ourselves in the first place, take care of our emotions, and then help others to do the same. So together with education and empathy, I believe we can inspire young minds to build your more aware future news consumers and future voters, so they make better online decisions, they avoid misinformation, and they actively search for quality information and facts. And this is what we all should care about. Thank you.
Thank you, Aleksandra, for walking us through that. Just one quick question whilst I leave the QR codes up there if you want to take a look. Do you think this game could also be used by parents, grandparents, or is it more for the young, or is it for everyone? What's your take on that?
Definitely. The idea is so basic that you don't have to even be aware of how social media work and algorithms work. We thought about that to make it the most inclusive as possible, because one of the feedback was that actually the educators themselves not always follow what is going on social media. So it's rather abstract, you're doing something together. So in that way, it could be mutual learning when young people can play with parents or grandparents and actually share some reflections. And it's really fun, so I believe yes.
Well, there's a game on this desk which someone can maybe borrow off you in a moment, so first come, first served. Let's talk about another project that was funded by the European Media and Information Fund, and we are now going to hand over to you, Martina. I'm going to pass this gadget down there. There we go. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to present our project through a story of Slovakia, because you could see the impact of disinformation. So Slovakia as a country where nowadays disinformation play an important role because politicians became a main disinformation spreaders. And our analysis is the first mapping of this disinformation ecosystem on the issues of corruptions and rule of law. During the analysis, we read 14,000 articles from mainstream media and also disinformation or alternative media because we wanted to compare it. So it has all started by the death of the journalist in 2018. So the murder started a massive protest on the streets, and after it, the government of Robert Fico had to resign. Also, PM, also Minister of Interior, and also head of the police. The next government, elected in 2020, government of Igor Matovic, loosened the hands of the police and special prosecutory office, which was focused on most serious economical crimes and also corruption. And after it, we could see also most important persons taken into the custody and also brought into the special court for corruption. And also the members of former government of Robert Fico. For example, Minister of Interior Robert Kaliňák, he was taken into the custody. So in our study of corruption judgments from that period, we could see that 1/4 of the cases was against public people, and we could see also significant rise of bribery exceeded 5,000 euro. So this was something like existential problem for Robert Fico and his former government, because they were scared of prison. So they had to invent something how to attract the public and regain the power. Finally, they copied the manners of alternative media, the manners of extreme political parties, and they started to spread disinformation. So we could see the former members of government, for example, Minister of Economy or Minister of Interior, spreading disinformation. So they used also the alternative media, which copied their status on Facebook without any need to verify it. So after the death of Kuciak, also the alternative media were focusing on the topics of rule of law and corruption cases. And during our analysis, we could see that with their small editor offices and with their small numbers of journalists, they could compete with mainstream media. You could see in the chart the red are alternative media and the blue are mainstream media. And they were planting the doubts about justice in the state. So the alternative media in Slovakia usually claim that we bring what the others are silent about. But I can tell you that it isn't true. We've analyzed more than 14,000 articles of alternative media and also mainstream media, and we found that They are only copying posts from Facebook without any need to verify it. They are also copying most important findings from mainstream media, which they criticize. They are spreading hate speech, and they don't follow ethic of journalism or methods. As I said, after the Cooke death, the alternative media started to focus on the subject of rule of law and corruption cases. Robert Fico and his colleagues used to social media and alternative media to spread this disinformation. But we were curious what the people think. So our poll showed that 15% of society gain the information from about corruption and the rule of law from alternative media, 34% from social media, and 46% from family and friends. And these are the easiest way how to spread disinformation. So, for example, they spread disinformation about potential risk of election fraud, but it's something like evergreen before every election. So, the situation led to resurrection of the government of Robert Fico in the parliamentary elections 2023, and only through the disinformation narratives we could see that they had been preparing the public for the changes. For example, they want to change the penalty law and reduce the penalty punishment. But in their electoral program, we couldn't see any plans of these changes. We could see only in the disinformation narratives. For example, just a few days ago, they cancelled the Special Prosecutor Office against corruption. And it wasn't in their electoral program, it was only in these narratives. So, in liberal democracy, the society is normally divided between people urban and people from village. But in Slovakia, the country is divided by disinformation and politics. The families are divided, and this is a problem. So we have to fight against disinformation. And how? In my opinion, it's very necessary to invest into professionality of journalism. I was a journalist. I work as a journalist maybe 20 years, so I know the situation, and we need to invest to it. Because you must see the difference between mainstream and alternative media. It's necessary also to speak about low quality of alternative media, also build fact-checking platforms like Demagog or AFP Fact Check, because before our parliamentary election in 2023, we could see also the deep fakes and campaign. For example, also deep fakes about potential risk of election fraud, or about the potential rising of prices of beer. But only thanks to these fact-checking platforms we could stop these deepfakes. It's very necessary also to run information campaigns because we could see also in the polls in Slovakia that after information campaign about potential risk of election fraud, the number of people who believe in it dropped. And it's necessary also to delete and punish hate speech and personal attacks also in socials. I think that socials must be responsible for the content. And also I heard some expert who said that will the hater will still be a hero if police knocks on his door. And it's very necessary also support project fighting against disinformation like EMIF do. So thank you very much for this support. Grazie Paolo, grazie EMIF, grazie a tutti.
Okay, so we have two examples there of projects, one focusing on media literacy for younger people but with other impacts, another looking at investigative research with practical outcomes. Both of those benefited from selection by the European Media and Information Fund. I'm sure you'll cover this, but for full transparency, Google contributed 25 million euro to the fund, but has no role in decision making, and there's strict governance, which Paolo can maybe touch on. But love to hand to you now to hear how the fund is going, what trends there are, and you have the clicker.
Yeah, with pleasure. Here you have just heard two examples of what EMIF is doing. Disinformation is, as is often said, a multifaceted threat that requires multi-dimensional responses. Now you have two examples. Here you see how important it is to build resilience across audiences, to actually invent new methods to make media literacy something that can be adopted and adapted to different segments of the populations. And here you see instead another example where disinformation has concrete examples on the democratic life of a country, basically, disruption of democratic processes and civic engagement at large, and how important it is to boost investigations, to boost fact-checking, and in the longer term, to restore the viability and the health of our information ecosystem. So for that, it is important to have the right infrastructures in place. And when I say infrastructure, I mean two things. One is essentially an infrastructure that builds communities and builds capacity across communities, and this is a bit what the EDMO, the European Digital Media Observatory, is there for. It is an organization, let me speak just a little bit about it, because it's important really to place the EMIF actions in the right context, which is politically significant, in addition to be practically important. And the political context here, it is characterized by an effort that has been made in Europe, across Europe, with the strong support by the European Commission, but also by the European Parliament, to create a network of communities that tackle different aspects, these different dimensions of the challenges posed by disinformation: fact-checking, media literacy, research. All the communities that are involved in these different spaces are brought together by EDMO in order to join forces and aiming at the common objective to find better ways to combat disinformation, but in a way that preserve our fundamental freedoms. Because it's easy to fall into censorship and removal of voices under pretext that these voices are disseminating disinformation. We have, unfortunately, quite clear examples in Europe and in the neighborhood of Europe, where disinformation has been, and fake news has been harnessed by politicians in order to create a legitimacy for laws that in fact remove freedom of expression, freedom of press. So that is very, very important to create infrastructure that actually create an enabling environment for freedom of expression. That is what EDMO is basically about, building capacity, connecting dots between multidisciplinary disciplinary communities, and basically creating this infrastructure that can act in critical situations. To give an example, not to be too long, we are going towards elections, and it's thanks to this network that entails central platforms, which is actually coordinated by the European University Institute, and 14 regional and national hubs located in the countries and covering the regions that you see on the map. It is thanks to this organization, decentralized organization, that is possible today, and since last week we started with a very detailed work of screening the information space, detecting the information that could be harmful for a healthy and intelligible electoral campaign in view of the 8th and 9th November European Parliament elections, with outputs that now are made on a daily basis and publicly available in our website and the various hubs website and through other channels as well. And as the times goes, as the campaigns develops, there will be more to come. Weekly brief, analysis of trends, in-depth analysis, public-facing articles that aim at doing what actually you have been doing, basically acting towards actors that have an interest in creating a sufficient level of divisions and distrust that ultimately can affect the integrity of the electoral process. So that is just to give an example. But if connecting the dots, creating capacities, and building communities is key, it is also important to find ways to tackle an underlying and unescapable problem, which is how to fund, how to finance, how to support these activities. The investigation, as everybody knows in this room, knows better than me, are costly. Developing specific activities on fact-checking requires sometimes a change in the model or the creation of new initiatives that have startup costs which are very high. In bringing pedagogic, innovative, pedagogic methods to the right audiences, to the right people, at the right time, it is not that obvious. And conducting research to understand how we can build a more resilient society, how beyond the impact on cognitive processes, how we can also influence behaviors of people in their interaction online and offline, actually. It requires times and longitudinal studies that are costly. So this is where EMIF come into the picture. It is a quite original, and I must say quite courageous model of funding, in the sense that typically funders identify in this space, in the disinformation space, identify potential beneficiaries and provide direct fundings, including direct cooperation agreements with organizations that fulfill specific needs, like, I don't know, a fact-checking organization. The interest of EMIF, it is a collector of funding. It is a multi-donor by design. It started its operation thanks to the inaugural donation by Google, but we are aiming at expanded activities and diversifying our funder bases. And the reason is that by collecting funds into a vehicle, we can then, through the application of very transparent, neutral, competitive process, identify beneficiaries that then they can act in full independence. I I think that is very, very important. Both research, fact-checking, investigation could be tainted of industrial capture, because we talk about media capture with political actors behind, but there is also risk of industrial capture, and this vehicle actually temper a bit the risks of discrediting the work done by these organizations, which are very important, by throwing a shadow on them and presenting as piloted by industrial interest. Well, this is the first point. The second point is that, as you can see, it's a fund which is quite agile, because in 30 months we have been able to deploy funds to support 81 projects that covers 26 countries, and to cover all the areas of interest, which is media literacy, research, fact-checking, journalistic investigations, and deploying 12.5 million right now already dispersed, and more is to come. And we are in the middle of this first experience, of this first cycle of the fund. The agility here is key, because let's say there is the outbreak of a war. Russia invades Ukraine on the 24th February 2022. What happens? It happens that on 27 February, EMIF launched a specific call to boost fact-checking activities in a context where the risks of disinformation was perceived, not still very well understood, but which had a spike, an incredible spike, in the months of March and April in particular. So the agility in this case is key. Another example, there are elections coming forward. We need to increase the capacity to join forces across fact-checkers. We can, with fast-track calls, capture these specific needs in specific moments. The same applies for the war in the Middle East. Thirdly, and finally, I think the agility is combined with a strong scientific guidance, and there is where the linkage between EDMO and EMIF comes into play. Our calls that do not come out of the blue. They're the result of a long internal reflection to see what are the best areas to be where we should invest, and to design the calls in a way that capture these needs. Out of 81 projects, that is just an example. Out of these 81 projects, 19 are dealing with AI. And they were started well before that AI became a buzzword this year, after ChatGPT and the rest. Before that, so intercepting trends, it is fundamental. And for those who are, and I will conclude with that, for those who are in the room who are journalists or fact checkers, look, that when we talk projects regarding AI, we are not talking about abstract things. We are talking about development of tools that should make the process of fact-checking and the ability of journalists and newsrooms to react to potential fake news in a very stringent and difficult to manage news cycle 24/7, right? Using automatic tools that can identify or can make certain parts of the workflow much easier, to detect the claims to be fact-checked, to identify on a multilingual basis how these claims spread all over. 3, how to identify connection between accounts or outlets or bogus media, alternative media, you'd say, right? What are the connections that are not visible from outside but can be very telling and very, very informative, that they dug out of the darkness? That is something that can be done with specific AI tools, and that is what these projects are about.
Thank you so much for that. We are going to be good Perugia citizens and finish promptly on time. Let me just go to that, though. If you would like to learn more about how to apply to the fund, mffund.eu, I believe is the correct website. Someone shout at me if that's incorrect. Good, thank you. If you would like to attend virtually or in person another Fighting Misinformation Online event, there is a Central and Eastern European edition next week, I believe. You can follow the event live virtually there. From my perspective, thank you so much to MF and the team who does all the work independently. Thank you and congratulations to our grantees as well. And thank you for your time. We'll see you in the next sessions for the rest of the day. Thank you.